双语音标领航，注音阅读启蒙，叶兴阳有声读物。
History of Friedrich II of Prussia v. 15, Volume 15, by Thomas Carlyle, Book 15, Second Silesian War. Important episode. In the General European One. August 15th, 1744 to December 25th, 1745. Chapter 1. Preliminary. How the moment arrived. Battle being once seen to be inevitable, it was Friedrich's plan not to wait for it, but to give it, thanks to Friedrich Wilhelm and himself. There is no army, nor ever was any, in such continual preparation. Military people say, some countries take 6 months, some 12, to get in motion for war, but in 3 weeks Prussia can be across the marches, and upon the throat of its enemy, which is an immense advantage to little Prussia among its big neighbors. Some countries have a longer sword than Prussia, but none can unsheath it so soon. We hope, too, it is moderately sharp, when wielded by a deft hand. The French, as was intimated, are in great vigor. This year, thoroughly provoked, and especially since Friedrich sent his Rothenburg among them, have been doing their very utmost. Their main effort is in the Netherlands, at present, and indeed, as happened, continues all through this war to be. They by no means intend, or ever did, to neglect Deutschland, yet it turns out, they have pretty much done with their fighting there, and next year, driven or led by accidents of various kinds, they quit it altogether, and turning their whole strength upon the Netherlands and Italy, chiefly on the Netherlands, leave Friedrich, much to his astonishment, with the German war hanging wholly round his neck, and take no charge of it farther, in which, to Friedrich's biographers, there is this inestimable benefit, if far the reverse to Friedrich's self, that we shall soon have done with the French, then, with them, and with so much else, and may, in time coming, for most part, leave their huge sorcerer's Sabbath of a European war to dance itself out, well in the distance, not encumbering us farther, like a circumambient bedlam, as it has hitherto done. Courage, reader! Let us give, in a glance or two, some notion of the course things took, and what moment it was when Friedrich struck in, whom alone, or almost alone, we hope to follow thenceforth. Dismal swamp, so gracious was heaven to us, lying now mostly to rearward, little as we hoped it. It was mere accident, a series of bad accidents, that led King Louis and his ministers into gradually forsaking Friedrich. They were the farthest in the world from intending such a thing. Contrariwise, what brain-beating, diplomatic spider-weaving, practical contriving, now and afterwards, for that object, especially now, Rothenburg, Noailles, Belle-Isle, Cardinal Tencin, have been busy, not less the Mistress Chateauroux, who admires Friedrich, being indeed a high-minded unfortunate female, as they say, and has thrown out Amelot, not for stammering alone. They are able, almost high people, this new Chateauroux ministry, compared with some, and already show results. Nay, what is most important of all, France has unconsciously, or by mere help of Noailles and luck, got a real general to her armies. Comte de Saxe, now Marechal de Saxe, who will shine very splendent in these Netherland operations, countershown by mere Wades, D'Albeg, Cumberlands, in this and the 4 following years. Noailles had always recognized Comte de Saxe, had long striven for him, in official quarters, and here gets the light of him unveiled at last, and set on a high place. Loyal Noailles. This was the year, this 1744, when Louis XV, urged by his Chateauroux, the high-souled unfortunate female, appeared in person at the head of his troops. Go, sire, go. Monsieur you, and I will accompany. Show yourself where a king should be, at the head of your troops, be a second Louis le Grand, which he did, his chateau, and he actually went to the Netherlands with baggage, train immeasurable, including not cooks only, but play actors with their thunderbarrels, off from Paris. May 3d. To the admiration of the universe. Adelung. 4, 113. Barbier. 2, 391,394. Delors. Italic, hist. De Paris. End italic and c. Took the command. Nominal command. First days of June. And captured in no time Menin, Ypres, Ferns, and the fort of Knock, and as much of the Austrian Netherlands as he liked. That is to say, saw Noailles and Saxe-Stewart, walking rapidly forward from siege to siege, with a most thundering artillery, old Marshal Wade and consorts dismally eating their victuals, and looking on from the distance, unable to attempt the least stroke in opposition, so that the Dutch barrier, if anybody now cared for it, did go all flat, and the balance of power gets kicked out of its sacred pivot. To such purpose have the Dutch been hoisted. Terrible to think of, had not there, from the opposite quarter, risen a surprising counterpoise, had not there been a Prince Karl, with his 70,000, pressing victoriously over the Rhine, which stayed the French in these sacrilegious procedures. Prince Karl gets across the Rhine, 20 June 2 July, 1744. Prince Karl, some weeks ago, at Heilbronn, joined his Rhine army, which had gathered thither from the Austrian side, through Bayern, and from the hither Austrian or Swabian winter quarters, with full intent to be across the Rhine, and home upon Alsace and the compensation countries, this summer, under what difficulties soever.
Karl, or,
as some whisper, old Marshal Tron, who is nominally second in command, do make a glorious campaign of it this year, and lift the cause of liberty, at one time, to the highest pitch it ever reached. Here, in brief terms, is Prince Karl's operation on the Rhine, much admired by military men. Stockstad, June 20th, 1744. Some 30 and odd miles north of Mannheim, the Rhine, before turning westward at Mainz, makes one other of its many islands, of which there are hundreds since the leap at Schaffhausen. One other, and I think the biggest of them all, perhaps 2 miles by 5, which the Germans call Kuhkopf, cowhead, from the shape it has, a narrow semi-ellipse, river there splitting in two, one split, the western, going straight, the other bending luxuriantly round, so that the hind head or straight end of the island lies towards France, and the round end, or cowlips, so to speak, towards native Touchland, and the woody hills of the Bergstrasse thereabouts.
Stockstad,
Chief little town looking over into this cowhead island, lies under the chin. Understand only farther that the German branch carries more than 2/3 of the river, that on the island itself there is no town or post of defense, and that Stockstad is the place for getting over. Coigny and the French, some 40,000, are guarding the river hereabouts, with lines, with batteries, curtains, the best they can. Seckendorf, with 20,000 more, Imperial Old Bavarian troops, revivified, recruited by French pay, is in his garrison of Philipsburg, ready to help when needed. Not molting now, at Wemdingen, in that dismal manner, new-feathered now into Kaiser's army, waiting in his Philipsburg to guard the river there. Coigny's French have ramparts, ditches, not quite unfurnished, on their own shore, opposite this cowhead island, Isle de Heron, as they call it, looking over to the hindhead, namely, but they have nothing considerable there, and in the island itself, nothing whatever. If now Stockstad were suddenly snatched by us,
Tingscad,
if a few pontoons were nimbly swung in, June 20th, Coigny's people all shooting FUDJLI, for that never enough to be celebrated capture of Menin and the Dutch barrier a fortnight ago. This is managed to be done. The active General Baron Clow, active Brigadier Dawn under him, pushes rapidly across into Kuhkopf, rapidly throws up entrenchments, ramparts, mounts cannon, digs himself in, greatly to Koiny's astonishment, whose people hereabouts, and in all their lines and posts, are busy shooting FUDJOIE for those immortal Dutch victories. At the moment, and never dreaming of such a thing, fresh force floods in. Prince Karl himself arrives next day, in support of Baron Clow. Koiny, headquarters at Speyer, 40 miles south, need not attempt dislodging him, but must stand upon his guard, and prepare for worse, which he does with diligence, shifting northward into those Stockstadt Mainz parts, calling Seckendorf across the river, and otherwise doing his best, for about 10 days more, when worse, and almost worst, did verily befall him. No attempt was made on Baron Clow, nor, beyond the alarming of the Koiny Seckendorf people, did anything occur in Cowhead Island, unless it were the fineness of an ugly bully and ruffian, who has more than once afflicted us, which may be worth one word.
Colonel Mansell. Copperfest Colonel.
Originally play actor, spy in Persia, and I know not what had been at the seizure of Kuhkopf, a prominent man, whom, on the 5th day after, June 25th, Prince Karl overwhelmed with joy, by handing him a patent of generalcy, just received from court. My friend, on account of your merits old and late, said Baron Clow, congratulating warmly. Dine with me, then, Herr General Menzel, this very day. The prince himself is to be there, Highness of Hessen-Darmstadt. And who not? All are impatient to drink your health. Menzel had a glorious dinner, still more glorious drink. Prince Karl and the others, it is said, egging him into much wild bluster and gasconade,
To season their much wine.
Eminent swill of drinking, with the loud coarse talk supposable, on the part of Menzel and consorts did go on, in this manner, all afternoon. In the evening, drunk Menzel came out for air, went strutting and staggering about, emerging finally on the platform of some rampart, face of him huge and red as that of the foggiest rising moon, and stood, looking over into the Lorraine country, belching out a storm of oaths, as to his taking it, as to his doing this and that, and was even flourishing his sword by way of accompaniment, when, lo, whistling slightly through the summer air, a rifle ball from some sentry on the French side, writers say, it was a French drummer, grown impatient, and snatching a sentry's piece, took the brain of him, or the belly of him, and he rushed down at once, a totally collapsed monster, and mere heap of dead ruin, never to trouble mankind more.
Italique Guerre de Bohème.
End italic 3, 165, for which my readers and I are rather thankful. Voltaire, and perhaps other memorable persons, sometimes mention this brute, miraculous to the plebs and gazetteers. Otherwise eternal oblivion were the best we could do with him. Trenck also, readers will be glad to understand, ends in jail and bedlam by and by. Prince Karl had not the least intention of crossing by this Cowhead Island. Nevertheless, he set about 2 other bridges in the neighborhood, near Mainz, few miles below that city, kept maneuvering his force, in huge half-moon, round that quarter, and mysteriously up and down, alarming Koiny wholly into the Mainz region, for the space of 10 days, and then, stealing off to Schrock, a little Rhine village above Philipsburg, many miles away from Koiny and his vigilantes, he, night of June 30th to July 1st, suddenly shot Pandar Trenck, followed by Nadasti and 6,000, across at Schrock, who scattered Seckendorf's poor outposts thereabouts to the winds, built a bridge before morning, and next day another. Next day Prince Karl in person appeared, and on the 3d of July, had his whole army with its luggages across, and had seized the lines of Lauterburg and Weissenberg, celebrated northern defense of Alsace. Much to Koiny's amazement, and remained inexpugnable there, with Alsace open to him, and Tokoini shut, for the present. Adelung. 4. 139 to 141. Coiny made bitter wail. Accusation. Blame of Seckendorf. Blame of men and of things. Even tried some fighting. Seckendorf too doing feats. To recover those lines of Weissenberg. But could not do it. And, in fact, blazing to and fro in that excited rather than luminous condition, could not do anything, except retire into the strong posts of the background, and send express on express, swifter than the wind if you can, to a victorious king overturning the Dutch barrier. Help, your majesty, or we are lost. And France is, what shall I say? Admirable feat of strategy. What a general! This Prince Karl! Exclaimed mankind. Cause of liberty mankind with special enthusiasm, and took to writing lives of Prince Karl. For instance, italic, the life of His Highness Prince Charles of Annecy, with Annecy, end italic, London, 1746. One of the most distracted blotches ever published under the name of book, wakening thoughts of a public dimness, very considerable indeed, to which this could offer itself as lamp, as well as tar-burning and tea-de-mine on an extensive scale. For it had sent the cause of liberty bounding up again to the top of things, this of crossing the Rhine, in such fashion, and, in effect, the cause of liberty, and Prince Karl himself, had risen hereby to their acme or culminating point in world history, not to continue long at such height, little as they dreamt of that. Among their tar-burnings, the feat itself contrived by Nadasti, people say, and executed, what was the real difficulty? By Tron brought Prince Karl very great renown, this year, and is praised by Friedrich himself, now, and afterwards, as masterly, as Julius Caesar's method, and the proper way of crossing rivers when executable, in face of an enemy. And indeed Prince Karl, owing to Tron or not, is highly respectable in the way of generalship at present, and did in these 5 months, from June onward, really considerable things, at his very acme of life, as well as of generalship, which, alas, soon changed, poor man, never to culminate again. He had got, at the beginning of the year, the High Maria Theresa's one sister, Archduchess Maria Anna, to wife, age then 25 gone, born September 14th, 1718, married to Prince Karl January 7th, 1744, died, of childbirth, December 16th same year, Hormer, italic, Österreichischer, Plutarch, end italic, 4.
Erstes Bautchen, 54.
The crown of long mutual attachment. She's safe now at Brussels, diligent co-regent, and in a promising family way. He here walking on victorious. Need any man be happier? No man can be supremely happy long. And this general strategic felicity and his domestic were fatally cut down almost together. The cause of liberty, 2. Now at the top of its orbit, was but let us stick by our excerpting. Dunkirk, July 19th, 1744. Princess Ulrich's wedding. Just 2 days ago.